Hello, everyone. We're going a little early, so I'm a little excited about this. Welcome to episode 194 of the NZXT podcast, the official podcast of the NZXT community. This podcast is recorded live on Fridays at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on the official NZXT Twitch. It is available to stream on demand on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud. My name is Mike, and as always, Ivan, you are always here with me. How are you doing?
How it do, baby boo? Happy Friday. Happy Case-A-Thon number 2. We have a very special guest today, but before I introduce them, I do want to make some quick announcements. Announcement number 1, if you are tuned in live today on twitch.tv/NZXT, you're in for a treat. We have a giveaway. Type exclamation giveaway in the chat for your chance to win 3 NZXT cases. Well, you're not going to win 3. 3 people will win 1 case. I don't know what you would do with 3 cases if you got them, but yeah, winner's choice. So yeah, 3 people get to decide which case they want. So that's announcement number 1. And stick around to the end of the stream. You get a secret word for a bunch of bonus entries into the giveaway. Announcement number 2 is we are celebrating the Case-A-Thon, and as part of the celebration, we are offering some major discounts on NZXT cases. So if you live in the good old US of A, head over to the NZXT Amazon store. It's nzxt.co/Amazon, and you can save up to 38% on a beautiful NZXT case. So GG. So thank you everyone for tuning in live. As I mentioned, it's episode number 2 of the Case-A-Thon, and with us today is Kevin. Kevin from the product team. Kevin, how are you?
Great. Happy to be here.
And you sound super excited, Kevin.
No, I mean, no, definitely.
I'm just teasing you, man. Yeah, you've been here at NZXT for over a decade. I can't believe I've known you for 10 years already, man. Please tell everyone how did you get started at NZXT?
Yeah, so I was originally hired out of our Taipei office. So I used to be based in Taiwan, and started as a marketing specialist. So at the time, the company was really, really small. I would say the team there no more than 15. And then the US, I think we only had like 30 or 40. But yeah, I was one of 3 marketing specialists hired to take products to market, writing PR and all of the marketing assets. And eventually moved on to a product management role, which kind of got me here now. So came back to the US 2 years ago, and working with the teams here and out of Taipei. So yeah, it's been a long ride.
So what does a typical day look like for you now as a product manager?
I mean, it changes here and there, but today, you start the day with going through email, the Slack chats, everything. Information travels quickly, and with Slack, you have to stay on top of some of the immediate requests, and then there's the emails, and in terms of product management, we're always constantly thinking about what's sort of over the horizon. So, a quick follow-up on where market's headed, market updates, and, working with the teams on day-to-day development of, what's to come. There's a whole lot of development stuff going on.
Yeah, so since you've been here for so long, what were some fun and challenging products that you specifically have worked on, especially during your time here?
I think last time I was on the call, I talked about Krakens because at the time I was driving the liquid cooler parts. In recent years, working on H6, the H7, both of which were layouts that we weren't traditionally used to. So it really required the team to do really deep investigations into what those layouts means in terms of performance. And when we were making cases with like solid front panels and very sort of limited airflow, by the way, it was limited, not so much, compared to what it is now. Because remember the H5 with the front solid panel, it was reviewed as like the best airflow case of its time, right? So I guess everything's relative, right? And today we are going down the path of making sure performance hits the marks. And so, working on H6, H7, thinking about those layouts, what those implications would become for, how the case would ultimately look. Those are hard to come around.
I remember.
Every day.
I remember the H5 and the H500 and the H510 people being like, "There's no airflow." I had both, and they were amazing. Like my temps never went. I had like a 2070 in that thing, and like my temps never went above 60. Like I don't know how people were like saying like the parts are being cooked right now in this case. There's no airflow. It was totally great. Like for the parts back then, it was amazing.
Yeah, and everything sort of changes, right? TDP's gone up, and maybe fan performance comes into play. Yeah, but being a product manager is always about, okay, what are all of these components that are being in the space, and how do we optimize for a lot of it for the PC DIY and also for just PCs in general.
Yeah, that's actually a great segue into what I wanted to discuss with you next, which was just the overall philosophy and approach that you and your team take into a consideration when it comes to making a case. I'm curious, Kevin, like when you're working on a new case, what is the first thing your team considers?
Ooh, that's always like a hard one. Performance is definitely one of the top baseline that we go by, because at the end of the day, you're buying something that is essentially going to house all of your components. And how we sort of measure performance in terms of thermals and maybe noise, those have to be sort of at the back end. And then we always consider how well it's going to look at the end of the day. So balancing that performance and the looks, aesthetics, it's not always easy. And with layout changes, that sort of throws a wrench in what used to be tried and true.
And I know it's not easy, but how do you do it? How do you actually balance
we have
form
a good
and
team.
function?
I would say we have a great team of mechanical engineers and industrial designers that I work really closely with. Gus out in Taipei, Shen. So I'd say with the teams and all of the different inputs that we get throughout the company, and I think that's the thing about our culture here, where we keep it as transparent and open as possible, internally, and we always ask around, hey, what do you guys think of this? Are we, is like your first impression, if it's like a big red flag goes up, that's something we're like, oh, okay, maybe that's not the path to take. I think with the culture and the team, just our global presence and all the members that are involved, we get some good feedback. Hopefully earlier than say later, because once you're in tooling, there's no going back, right?
Yeah, we have no return.
Yeah.
I have a question. Like, what type of like red flags are you looking for? Is it like, oh, the temps aren't working well, or is it like more like, oh, this doesn't look right?
Yeah, so I think the H7, I would say, in recent, well, years, because it took us about a year to develop it, and we launched it mid last year. Yeah, when we thought of that layout, the first impression was like, this thing is awkward. This thing looks so weird. There's the negative space along the bottom, but and we tested temperatures, and it was great. It was open. We had room for three 140 fans in the front. Um, because positioning the power supply vertically, that allowed us to stretch the case up so that we could support 420s. And in the past, historically, H7 couldn't support 420 mounting. And testing the performance, taking a look at it, I think we went through a couple of ID iterations, industrial design, and at first it was just really weird, but the more that we look at it, the more we think, hey, this thing is actually can stand on its own. Now, whether the product performs well in terms of sales, or that's a whole nother thing, and hopefully people grow to like it, as opposed to, yeah, this thing is just weird and maybe it was a bad idea. So you don't know until you launch it and how well it does in the market. Yeah.
So the market determines a lot. Like, people, obviously, we make cases for people to look and buy because they like it, or they like the looks of it, or the performance of it. So like, especially with NZXT, like we're kind of known for like having the very clean, simple aesthetic. Like, you just look at a case, you go, yeah, that's an NZXT case. Like, how do you decide on like how you're going to build it, like with the materials? Like, what made you guys decide to go, we'll do 420 radiator front? Like, how do you decide on all that? Like, what's the process like?
Yeah. So in terms of building roadmaps and building tiers of cases, we really have to think about various price segments, various price bands, and various competitor products in those price bands. And for us right now, we sort of have it defined as this type of look, and you got various sizes to choose from. So with the more traditional layout, the H5 and 7, it's the mid towers, and then it's about tiering the sort of cooling potential. And then for something like a dual chamber, the H6 and 9, 6, we went in and we made sure that we were sort of laser focused on what people really need, right? To get a build up and going, it's not like you have to have mounting locations for radiators, everywhere. So we sort of make trade-offs on deciding where to cut and how do we position that product so that it's pretty much all you need for the latest modern components that are going in. And what you mentioned about looks and aesthetics and how minimalistic we can get, there's a little bit of a double-edged sword there, because we try to go as clean as possible, but how do we make it sort of iconic NZXT versus, hey, this thing just looks generic, and slap any other brand name on it, and it could have been what say, I don't know, competitor B could put out as well. So finding that balance, adding, I don't know if it's NZXT flair or lack thereof, um, yeah, it comes back to a lot of that, and I think, well, our CEO Johnny has been pretty involved in product in the past, and um, you know we always make sure that, hey, well, we're creating. I think he has a really good sense of the competitive products out there. So inputs, having those inputs have always been appreciated as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me when I look at this image here that Mike is on the stream is basically all five of these cases have amazing airflow. And like you were saying earlier, there was a time in the history of NZXT where it was literally a meme that NZXT did not have airflow. Like we would make memes on social media because people would think that our cases were just hot boxes, but that's definitely not the case anymore. No pun intended there.
Yeah.
My question to you is, like now that airflow is such a priority in our cases, how do you approach airflow optimization in general? And second part is second part of that question is why is airflow such a big focus now?
Yeah. So the way we look at it generationally now is, we now have a extensive or more extensive team of engineers that are setting sort of baseline how we compare ourselves against the previous generation of H7s. So establishing those baselines, we consider, okay, what are areas that we can improve upon? And then in terms of the next generation, we make sure that how we compare to the previous generation, we at least have some levels of improvement. Whether that's a stock configuration or like a fully built out configuration. We're always seeing if we are making breakthroughs in sort of pushing more or lower temps, especially on the CPU and GPU, and using sort of the latest components to kind of compare against the previous gen as well. So, comparing ourselves and also all the other competitor, latest products that they bring to the market, and sort of make sure that we're well positioned in terms of where we compete.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times too we're kind of competing against ourselves in some ways, looking at the what we've done in the past and what worked and what didn't. And here in the chat, someone, I think it was what's their name here? With the X. Phil and Nux. I think they brought up that the case timeline we showed last week. So Mike, can you pull it up again real quick? And I want Kevin here to walk us through the evolution of NZXT cases over the years, because I do think it's actually like quite interesting when you see like where we started and how we ended up here. And there's definitely some cases where you look at them and you're like, oh, so that's how the H440 came to be, or that's how the H710 became a thing. But I just want to go back 10 years to like when Kevin started here. We won't go back to the very
maybe
beginning.
I can give some insights into how sort of case development and sort of creation has sort of come about. And in the past it was taking tooled like chassis steel frames and then applying plastic bezels and plastic injection mold front pieces, and sort of calling it a day. So there wasn't really much you could do unless you started your own tool. So in the past it was mostly about how do I create this front facade to, differentiate myself. And then what happens, within the chassis layouts, that's more or less defined by, maybe it's the supplier that we're working with. That's something they had. So when we got ourselves into a position where we are doing our own tools, thinking up layouts, what do people actually need? That opens up, a lot more flexibility and what we can do. So going back, prior to me joining, a lot of times it's really about how it looks externally. And at the time, our brand slogan was, crafted gaming armor, or is that what? Yeah. So
Yeah.
it was, we come a long way from there. And I don't know if it's more mature now in terms of looks. I don't know. Maybe that comes with age as well. But yeah, it's minimalism. We're hoping to make cases that that can withstand the test of time, right? You look at it a year from now, hopefully it doesn't look outdated, and then you want something else. Because these PCs essentially are, should last a user 3 years minimum, right?
They should buy a new one every 6 months, though, right, Kevin?
For sure. Maybe on a secondary build, maybe. Yeah.
When you look at this timeline here, which is your favorite case?
I mean, some of the ones that stood out for me, especially, is like the H440 and the S340. I think those two are the cases that kind of got us to where we are today. The H440 was the first that we introduced the PSU shroud. Then everybody sort of just followed on that. And then the S340 was about how do we get, make trade-offs. What is the modern PC of that time? What are those minimum things that we have to, I guess, create compatibility for, and shrink, the profile of the compact mid tower. And at the same time, it just looks like a box, right? It's and it's clean in terms of what it offers.
Yeah.
But yeah, those two cases, we were first to remove the 5.25 inch bays, and but it opened up where case layouts and designs are, for the majority of, I guess, the cases out there.
Yeah. I talked about that briefly on last week's stream, where if you look at the initial reaction to that case in 2014, people thought NZXT was crazy. People were saying things like, "How am I going to install my video games?" Things like that. Which, it's kind of funny to think about now, but back then, high-speed internet was not as prevalent as it is now, which
for sure.
Kind of goes to show you kind of have to design for the future, not the present, right? So
yeah, I just remember because I was based in Taiwan at the time, and our sales rep selling to the Japanese market, they're like, where do I put my DVD-ROM drives? Because Japan is a market that was slow to transition away from CDs, and given that you no longer can with this case, that was a big red flag for them, because they rely on CD-ROMs. They still had Tower Records. They still had all of those people, and I guess digital music wasn't like it is today. Spotify didn't existed. Everything. People were playing MP3s. So yeah.
I remember it was everything was DVD'd. I remember I had Plants vs Zombies. That was like one of the first like CD PC games I ever had. And when I transitioned to the H500, I'm like, whoa, where does this go? And I think a great quote that people don't realize is like you said, building for the future than like more for like the present. Because I mean, back then when the car came out, people were like, "This is stupid. It goes slower than a horse." And all the carriage, horse drivers were just like, "Yeah." I'm like, "This is stupid. Why would anyone do something like this?" And then now look at all that. So it's just kind of the state of how evolution and technology kind of advances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well, speaking of evolution, let's dig deeper into the current case lineup here. So, we were talking about it earlier, but I do want to go over the differences between these 5 cases here that we're showing on the screen, which are the H1, H5, H7, H6, and H9. Kevin, can you just start with the lowest number and work your way up and just tell everyone what the differences are here?
yeah, so the H1 is definitely a unique one out of the mix. That one we were aiming to make small form factor easy. And I think today, well, I don't know that it's shown here, but it is a product that we have discontinued. But in thinking about that case, that was the case that we wanted to make jumping into a small build easy, and therefore we included power supply, a liquid cooler to kind of get builds up and running. I literally did a build in like 10 minutes, and then for someone that was inexperienced, we clocked them in at maybe somewhere around like 20 minutes or something like that. Because all of the cables were pretty much pre-wired, and you just kind of need to drop it in and put it in place. And then moving on to like the 5. So the 5 has always been positioned where this is like for the masses. You need a PC up and going. Affordability is one thing that you consider. Following on the S340 to the H500s to right now the H5, that's always been the main consideration. What are some of the specs I would need to get a PC up and going? And then the H7 is sort of the bigger brother to that. Now that you're in this PC space and you want higher cooling potential, more fans to put into the build, bigger GPUs, you want to make sure that those are in terms of thermals, you got bottom intake fans that aren't going to be obstructed. So that would be like the bigger case to choose. And then the H6, the H6 actually followed our H9 case. So when we did the H9, it was about bringing that panoramic view to and sort of our take on it, because the market seems to be at the time it was all about GPUs getting chunkier, and therefore a dual chamber makes sense because you then have bottom intake fans, so H9 kind of got us there, and then we made sure that that panoramic view into PCs, that was like the low hanging fruit, I would say, in terms of dual chambers. And then today you look at cases now, it's like everything has a panoramic view. So the H6, it was about taking that, making it more compact, making it more affordable, and then what are some performance optimizations we could do? Do I truly need so many radiator mounting locations when we know 90+% are they just have a liquid cooler on their CPU? So it's that's sort of what got us to our current lineup. And
And I think there's something that I feel like there's something in this current lineup that people still don't know about or underutilizing? Is there anything that you think that people that you've noticed when people build in these cases? Is there's like a feature or something in these cases that people aren't utilizing enough?
I wouldn't say not utilizing, but it's more, maybe it's the trickiness of cable management. And as you know, building a PC, cable management has always been this thing that we try to make easy, and simpler, because that's probably the most daunting task towards the end of any build, right? You got everything connected, but is it going through sort of the right pass-through holes? And I saw a build yesterday where the 16 pin was sort of coming out from the top and then dangling down to a GPU on an H7.
Oh.
So I guess that's a thing that doesn't always come naturally, and we provide various points, and maybe that's a piece of education that we could maybe guide user towards, and what's the best utilization of which cutout, and then sort of guide users to how they should be routing their cable so that they could achieve a clean look or a cleaner look.
I guess
along those
that
lines.
kind of also transitions into my next two questions. Is like cable management is like a huge deal when building a PC, but also to a lot of builders themselves, because there's that meme of like, oh, you just put the front or the back panel on and you just forget about your cables and everything like that. Do you think that like the NZXT cases like help with cable management, that a lot of people, especially for myself as well, like builders dread cable managing? Do you think our cases kind of help with that?
Yeah, I mean, we try to make sure our channels and the way we have cables, that are sort of naturally wired up where they need to go, that there are sort of tie down points or built-in sort of Velcro straps that ensures, okay, you're going from point A to point B. There's something in between that could allow you to cable manage. But of course, there's always okay, just shove everything in, close the panel type of builder as well, because less time spent on working on your PC, more time spent on enjoying the PC games.
Y'all play games on your PCs?
I hope they do.
Next week we're gonna have Jules from the customer service team here on the podcast, and he's gonna talk about like what he sees on a day-to-day basis with the way people build in their PCs. And one of the questions I want to ask him, I'm going to ask you because I'm super curious what your take is on this, but I want to know, what's one of the most common mistakes you see people make when building inside of an NZXT case?
I wouldn't say it's mistakes. Well, I mean, yes, back to what I was saying, about wiring things up and utilizing more optimal cutouts to get to that point. There's nothing really that sticks out all too much.
Mike installed the Kraken radiator on the bottom of his case. Is that a mistake or is that good?
There's definitely, okay, the biggest mistake is sometimes you get a fan that's blowing one way, but then because it looks have it oriented,
right.
and then there's never enough intake.
It's funny you mentioned that. Just the other day, someone posted on our subreddit, shout out to r/NZXT. Someone posted this this diagram of how they set up the airflow in their NZXT case. And our case, like literally every single one of our cases is designed the same way, where air goes in through the front and goes out the top
From
and
the
the
top.
rear, right?
Hmm.
But they decided to do intake and exhaust on the front. So like I think it was the bottom was intake, the top was exhaust, and then on the top they had one intake, one exhaust. The rear was intake, the bottom was one intake, one exhaust. And I guess their thinking was, you know, they couldn't figure out like where the air goes in and out, so they just figured, let me just make both, like every single side go in and out. And
Yeah.
I told them
And that's
actually,
definitely one thing you want to avoid,
yeah,
because yeah, you get air, cool air in, and then immediately you're pulling it out. What you want is a good amount of airflow going to the critical components, um, and therefore sort of funneling them, towards a path. So intake, ideally in the front, so that you get the most volume, where it's sort of unobstructed, just due to how PCs are positioned. And hopefully you're not blowing hot air at yourself, right? That's like, yeah, I don't know if I want to play games when, hot air is constantly being blown at me. Maybe it was winter. I don't know.
yeah. You get sweaty enough playing games as it is, right?
Yeah, actually, I get cold hands and feet because
Oh,
all the blood goes to my brain. So yeah.
all right, Kev, what's one feature that you think makes NZXT cases stand out from our competitors?
Um, I don't know. I think one of the things that sort of sticks out for me is not entirely on the case side, but the moment you take, say, our motherboard design and put it in the vast sea of motherboards, um, ours sticks out because of how clean, it can be. So similarly on the case side, um, a lot of times competitors are sort of putting their take or implementing some sort of design element that sticks to with their brand. Whereas NZXT, the way we think about it is, how do we clean, tastefully sort of put branding from the exterior. Now, yeah, that's something we might need to work better on, so that we don't get stuck in this. Yeah, this thing just looks boring, and maybe NZXT is too subtle, and therefore nobody knows that it's NZXT. So there's always a balance to kind of meet, and yeah, it's not always easy. I rely on our designers and maybe even Johnny for his input. Hey, this is not NZXT enough.
Yeah.
So we all kind of pitch into how we all think.
So I guess since you're kind of talking about that, like how do you know when something is NZXT enough? Like when you're making, let's say, like a case, and you're like, okay, the engineering, the cooling's good, but what makes you go, we need to take a step back because it doesn't look NZXT enough, or it doesn't feel NZXT enough? What are those like criteria that you're looking
Yeah, I think that's always going to be something that's hard to answer, because I would say people's, and by people I mean like customers and end users, people, PC builders, perspectives change, right? And therefore, do they want something with overwhelmingly, like that just stands out with a brand or logo? Probably more people would say no than yes, unless they're rocking like I don't know, an Apple notebook. But even then, I've seen some people cover it up. I don't know. But hopefully, NZXT is a brand that people grow to love and they would represent. or they would rock, on their shirts. Um, um, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's sort of finding that balance. What are I feel like cases are sort of headed down this path of, okay, maybe this thing needs to blend better with the environment, which is their desktop space, or maybe it's like a piece of furniture. We're seeing companies create stuff that are like wood trims, but you know does the grain match well with everything else that you got? um we try to balance it so that whatever we do create, hopefully it's not going to stick out like a sore thumb, like when you have it sitting in your desktop environment, and it sort of blends well with what you got. So yeah, coming back to the question, how NZXT is NZXT, it's a tough one. I would say, we won't know unless we see it, and we sort of try to do these renders in like spaces that make sense a lot of times as well, to kind of envision and picture the products in its natural environments. So yeah, it's definitely a balance.
Since you're mentioning people and how they use cases, I'm curious, Kevin, how does community feedback shape the design of these cases?
Yeah, I think today we try to gather as much input as we can. Maybe even through like Amazon reviews or customer reviews, where they post images of where these cases are ultimately sitting, and we try to understand what, I guess, who are these PC gamers now. And I mean, Ivan, I know we're working on something to get more feedback. But yeah, it requires us to understand the needs of the community, and there's always some good ideas here and there that we try to test and validate, and that's part of, I guess, the role of a manager as well, right? We make assumptions on where we think the the needs are going to be, and we validate against those to see if it makes sense. And a lot of times you don't know until the product's out there, and people are either saying this thing is garbage, or this thing is like the best thing in the world.
Is there something that like a customer or like a or at least like a survey that has actually like directly influenced a case?
I mean, there's definitely, we run surveys, and we definitely do take those inputs. On case, it's a little bit hard, um, because a lot of the constraints comes from, okay, this is the layout, and uh, and you kind of have to go about it that way. Whereas, because it's hard to survey something, hey, does this layout good, right? Or is this going to help with your airflow? They wouldn't know, right? But say on like how well something is placed, or certain shapes, those are things that we could probably survey and get a sense of.
Let's see.
Kevin, have you ever been surprised by how someone has used an NZXT case?
Like besides like having a PC built,
Um, or it
or
could
like
be like,
maybe
for
they
example,
position
like
it
I
in
think
a.
for me, like one time I started seeing this trend uh, on on social media when the H1 came out. People were putting it like laying down horizontally instead of vertically. I thought that was kind of cool. Just curious if
Hmm.
you've seen any unique ways people have used an NZXT case.
Yeah, not that um no, not that I've come across.
Bear Law says that they put their beer on top of it sometimes. That's pretty unique.
That's dangerous.
Yeah. Um, okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the future of NZXT cases. No spoiler alerts here, Kevin. I don't want you to leak anything that we're working on here
That's always a challenge
in
because
case Johnny's listening.
yeah.
Um,
Um, yeah.
so my first question for you about the future of NZXT cases here, like what do you and your team do to make sure that NZXT cases are staying compatible with the latest hardware trends? Because I've seen a few comments here in the chat already about these giant graphics cards, like what are you doing to make sure that these cases stay compatible, not just with GPUs, but everything that's coming out?
Yeah, so I guess working in this industry, we do, work with like the partners that are, pushing their latest technologies. So, you know, NVIDIA being one of them, AMD, Intel, we're always in discussions with them as well. So, yeah, we try to get a gauge from their inputs and, make sure that what we're creating um, is sort of in line with what they are expecting. So, um, I mean, there's definitely in the component space that is like not the graphics card or that's a little bit more challenging because you know other brands they're open to do whatever they like, right? So thicker radiators generally aren't something that we sort of design in. Um, but if that becomes the trend, then that's something we always monitor and keep an eye out for. Um, and it's always about staying on top of what the requirements and the demands are kind of are. Um, if CPUs are getting hotter and what it takes to cool it down is a bigger radiator, then maybe 420 is the pathway forward. Um, and hence why we sort of made the H7 capable of supporting bigger radiators and having those three 120 fans along the bottom. So as a PM, it is about what are those inputs that are coming in, whether it's from supplier side, whether it's from all the um, competitive products that are available out in the market, and sort of having a a good sense of where everything is. Uh, in in terms of GPU, that's when we had the H6, we brought it up to the graphic cards manufacturers and say, hey, this is something we're considering, and they really liked how we sort of positioned it.
Is there a trend like right now that you're really paying attention to more than the others? Like I know you talked about CPU, graphics card size. Is there one or maybe even like two of them that you're like, yeah, this will probably affect a lot of our cases in the future?
Well, lately it's been this, I don't know, like quality is a bar that we set really highly on NZXT cases. Um, and lately I'm just seeing a lot more flimsy stuff out there. And it's like, do people really not care anymore? And that's always been one thing that certain YouTube influencers, they do like bend tests. They take it, they rattle the case, and have been sort of saying, hey, this thing is bad. But nowadays it's like, is it something that you accept now? So I don't think we're going down that path because quality is still a bar that we set really highly, and we make sure that when you get our product, it should feel rigid and solid. It shouldn't feel like it's gonna, you know, break once you have it, set. Or, you accidentally drop a panel somewhere and it bends out of shape. So yeah, hopefully that trend is not the way cases are going. But yeah, if people are okay with it, and maybe that's where, I guess, dollars could then be put elsewhere. Yeah, as a PM, it's always about balancing where the dollars are kind of put into, and therefore, maybe it becomes allocated towards finer dust filters or something like that.
Are there any big
that kind of
trends
process.
or innovations that you foresee in the future for that would influence
Well,
your
it's already
case?
happening now, which is the panoramic view. There's
Yeah.
like 5 or 6 cases that looks exactly like the Corsair's 3500, and following Computex last year, it was the trend. Yeah, there's also this trend of enabling displays. So yeah, people want more displays apparently. Kraken Elite is not enough.
You can always have more.
Yeah.
So if you could design an NZXT case without any limitations, like Johnny just said, Kevin, you have infinite budget here, you can make whatever you want. What would that case look like?
Ooh. I guess to answer that, it's like I feel like there's definitely this need to go small, and components are becoming more and more powerful, squeezing more performance in a smaller package. Maybe it's somewhere along the lines of how do we balance performance in a smaller case. And yeah, I'm not saying there's still definitely huge advantages in having big cases where air just kind of just flows on through. But yeah, if performance allows, then yeah, it's a smaller case that yeah will get us there.
Are there any like cases that we used to make, like our discontinued cases, that you wish that we could like I know for our April Fool's Day last year, I think it was, for the classic, where we're like, hey, we're revamping our old cases. People were actually really excited about that. They're like, wait, is this real or not? Because I really hope this is true. Is there like a case that you're like, I would love to just redo again for this current generation at least?
Yeah, I mean, the Phantom lines were sort of iconic in its heydays, and I don't know, something. I think it still comes back to the question of whether it's gonna now blend well or not blend well with your environment. I know, Ivan, you like the Manta that you have sitting back there, and
Yeah.
it was definitely unique the way we formed sort of the curved panels. But yeah, in terms of performance, that's always going to be tough. Solid panels. So yeah, how do you have solid panels but ensure airflow, right? And yeah, or adequate airflow.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, maybe it is those trade-offs, giving up on that, and creating something that is going to withstand the test of time, be put into your desktop environment, and it fits. It's a lot of balancing.
Yeah. All right, Kevin, I have one last question for you, and it's the hardest question of the day. And be careful how you answer in case your boss is watching, all right? What is your favorite part about working at NZXT besides being on this podcast?
I'd say it's the culture. of everybody who's involved, all of the teams.
Even Laurent?
Oh, 100%, maybe 110%.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a privilege to be part of this team. That everyone sort of speaks their mind in the sense that it is better for it allows us to sort of all learn and grow from each other, and be part of a team that cares a lot about what we create, and sort of the interactions that we think is great for the community. And yeah, again, inputs can come from all over the place. And yeah, I mean, that's certainly one thing that I appreciated. I mean, even like working out in Taiwan, that sort of culture is non-existent in in companies out there. So yeah, it's definitely been a blessing.
Well, that was a great answer. So that was my last question, but I do have some community questions for you, taken from the chat here during the stream. Sage the Plug wants to know, how far away are we from a pyramid case? Because he says, or they say, a pyramid is the strongest shape and structure. And by the way, Kevin, I don't know if you saw this, but they just discovered like these giant
Oh yeah, pillars
pillars underneath the
Giza, the
pyramids.
pyramid of
Yeah.
Giza. Yeah.
So who knows what the heck was going on right there? But yeah, so I guess how far are we from
Aliens.
seeing a pyramid case?
So a case has to abide by this sort of ATX form factor that Intel put out, years ago, and therefore anything in the PC space, unfortunately, the layout, the motherboard is going to be where everything connects to, and that is in itself a form factor. And then I guess the pyramid shape, it takes up a lot of space, especially on the bottom. So I guess to squeeze everything in, I don't know. Maybe there's some.
I just Googled it. There is a
is.
pyramid PC case.
I think I recall maybe from Thermaltake or something.
As
Okay.
yeah, Mike, you Google it and put it up. There you go.
Yeah.
Right there. That looks pretty cool.
Yeah. So this is more like a open bench slash. You got the. Yeah. So it apparently exists already. So, there you go.
Sage the Plug had a second question. Why can the H7 run a 420 millimeter AIO vertically, but the H9 can't at all?
Yeah, so that goes to that's definitely the thing about our timeline of introduction of cases. It is generally the case that when we are set out to do a particular case, that new breakthrough carries over to the next one. But then H9 sort of came ahead of, all of these transitions and requirements, and therefore in the refresh cycle, it, didn't have it when we set out to do that product. So, it's about the learnings and takeaways. But yeah, it's a good question. It's something that we work towards.
Mike actually feels like that in his personal life. This old man feels like he was born too late. He's 20 years younger than me, and he acts 20 years older for some reason. Epidemic 006 wants to know, which case is recommended for the first time PC builder?
Yeah, I would say the H5 is a good one. I remember when the H500 was it was sort of the primary case in the market. It was sort of recommended to, if you need to build a PC for your grandma, that's the case to get. Any PC will be fine with that case. And then the new H5 is.
I'm imagining my grandma playing Fortnite.
That'd be
not
something.
Gonna happen. Cassid7 wants to know, Is there a case that's best for the new 50 series cards?
That's best. I think you can't go wrong with any of our cases, but yeah, today we pretty much allow bottom mounted fans to be on the intake side. So depending on your 50 series card, if it's extra long, maybe you want to consider going like either the H7 or the H9, which has more fan capacities along the floor. So yeah, if your 90 is more or less just the Founders Edition lengths, then something like an H6 would do just fine. And it comes back to your desktop space. Do you have space for dual chamber, and what you can allocate there?
Victor Vaughn, aka MF Doom, wants to know, what case can you recommend that is as small as possible while I can fit a 280 millimeter radiator on top with fans on both sides?
Yeah, I know when we made the latest H5, we allowed for two 140 fans to be mounted on top, and we stated that if you have low profile memory, you could fit a 280 up on top, but who buys low profile memories? That's gonna be hard to come by. So yeah, unfortunately today we don't have a great case that, I mean, you can buy an H7 that's 280 top mounted, but
you know what the correct answer for that is, Kevin? It's actually the Manta. The Manta can do that. That's why that's why I love the Manta so much. The Manta to me was ahead of its time, man, because it can actually do things that a much bigger case cannot. This is a perfect example of that. It's the only case that I know of that's mini ITX that can support a 280 millimeter radiator on front and top with push-pull configuration, and it's not that big.
The only problem with that one is now you're limited to a 2-slot GPU, right? And
it's true. Nowadays,
everything is at
the
least
GPUs are a lot bigger. Yeah. All right. Last community question of the day is from the only boiled tater. Open concept wall mount case when? Do you think we'll ever make one, Kevin? A wall mount case?
I think that's such a niche market to tackle that it's going to be hard, because in thinking about walls and in thinking about environments, that's certainly not that we've considered primary. I don't know if
everyone in the chat is begging you to do it. Wall mount,
oh, really?
please,
Wall
LOL. Do it. So
I will definitely run it by the team and see, what's possible.
I don't trust myself enough to hang anything on my walls, let alone a computer.
Yeah.
I get scared mounting my TV to the wall. Like, I get scared about that. Like a TV, sure. Like a $3,000, $4,000 PC or something like that. That's terrifying to me.
Yeah.
Because I mean, just thinking about the cable management, running cables too, everything would really have to be wireless.
Yeah. All right, well, it's now time for my favorite part of the show. It's where Mike asks you the stupidest questions he can think of.
Oh man,
Mike, take it away, please.
Alrighty, so we'll stick with NZXT for a little bit. So what's something that you wish people knew more about NZXT cases?
Thanks for the crickets. Yeah. Now I can't even think. I don't know. I think the team works hard, putting what we put, in the time and effort to, create a lot of these products. And we do hope that, you do appreciate, all the, design choices that we've come to make. And if it was a bad design choices, we'd be happy to hear it. Yeah, so definitely, give us your feedback, give us your inputs.
What's the most difficult part of your job?
Oof. I think it's the maybe it's the creative aspect of some of the choices that we have to make. Because those don't come easy, and it's not like you could have a quick answer to any of it. Sometimes it takes time to cook, and it really requires a lot of brain power to be I guess put towards a particular thought or design, or so definitely not overnight.
Let's see. What games are you playing right now?
Oof. There's been this like lull, in terms of game releases. I know Monster Hunter Wild just came out, but I played World. I haven't found time to play any of the latest games. So lately I've been jumping into older titles. So for a while I was playing Red Dead Redemption 2, Elder Scrolls Online, because it scratches the MMO itch, I guess. And then there's this like indie game that's like Traveler's Rest or something, where you manage like a tavern. So those are what I've been playing lately. Yeah.
Is there a game that you'd recommend everyone to play?
I don't know. I think everyone, probably, I've not fired up Marvel Rivals yet, but I don't know. I've been hearing good things about it. I was never really into Overwatch, but I don't know. Maybe that's a game that I would try, but it's not my recommendation. I'm just saying, hey, maybe it's something. I would trust Steam charts. If people are playing it, maybe it's good.
As someone that has been playing it, it is good.
All right.
If you could play single or multiplayer for the rest of your life, you can only choose one. Which one would you choose?
I'd say multiplayer, because the dynamic is just so different. Single player, you're kind of limited to what the developers and what the creators kind of give you, and then I'm into sandbox games, so games like Minecraft, Enshrouded, any of those sandbox games are always good to play with friends.
If you have
Valheim.
$1 million, you have to live in the game for a year. But if you die in the game, you're dead in real life. Which one are you going to choose?
It definitely has got to be an easy game, right?
Up to you. Yeah, I mean, you got to live in it for a year. So if you really want to live in like Animal Crossing, you totally can. But you're stuck in it for a year.
Maybe
maybe Traveler's Rest. Yeah. What'd you say?
I was gonna say just say Among Us.
Among Us? Oh my god. No, I can't be stuck fixing things. Maybe like the game that I talked about earlier, Traveler's Rest, where you're like, you own a tavern, you expand the tavern, and then it's like running a restaurant.
I gotta play that. I love games like that. I gotta check it out.
Yeah, it was on sale. I guess a couple of weeks back. I don't know if it's still.
Oh, it looks like Stardew.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Stardew.
Stardew would be a game that I would choose probably. I just won't go to the mines. That's a good one. If your life were a video game, which cheat code would you like to have?
Dang. Like, who uses cheat codes anymore?
Could it be us? I've never cheated on a video game.
I cheat on Pokemon.
I mean, I only remember like back when Age of Empires, and entering cheat codes was a thing, or like StarCraft.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't. I guess those cheat codes that give you like infinite amount of resources, right? Or like you enter it, ask for more. Yeah,
GTA or Pokemon is what I was thinking. Pokemon, I used to. I'm
Wait,
sorry,
GTA
I used to do.
codes?
What was it?
GTA had cheat codes?
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh my god,
Wait, why
yeah.
did I not know this? Okay.
Oh yeah. That was the
Maybe
most
I'll.
fun time was when you're GTA, you're just like, I'm just gonna
Oh yes, but that was like the 2D ones though, right? Not like the latest
No,
titles
there's
of GTA.
I'm
All
not
of
sure
them.
about 5, but I remember in San Andreas you could definitely, yeah, you could put on like rocket launchers
Yes.
and stuff like that. I
Yeah, yeah,
remember
yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah, 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 yeah. Oh yeah, you have to like up, down, left, right, or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Hmm.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
those were fun days.
speaking of that, a genie gives you 3 wishes.
Ooh, these
What
are
are those 3 wishes?
like anything related.
Anything. You can do anything. And I'll say, to be nice, we'll do no genie, twisting of any kind, No more wishes. That's not allowed.
Hmm.
And you can't
I don't
wish
know.
for the rule to not
These are always
exist.
hard. Yeah, these are always hard because times change. Yeah, maybe. Wait, genie can't like ensure health, right? And can't
That's
like.
possible.
Oh, okay, then yeah, I guess health. I guess given my age, I feel like something to watch out for.
Mm.
But you never know. Yeah. Maybe like a force field that's always like, you know, protecting, you know, my family or whatever. Lately I've been watching Solo Leveling. Yeah, it's
Oh
like
yeah.
those are pretty cool. Become a necromancer.
And I guess this is a philosophical, and I know some people in chat. I know there's been questionings about this recently. Do you put away your shopping cart when you're done with it?
Oh, you mean like if I go to Costco?
Yeah.
And
Do you
then
put it back
I put
at
it
the
back?
little like shopping cart
I would
place?
say 95% of the time. Sometimes like they just don't have anything like remotely accessible and you have to like go 100 yards back to return it. Then I make sure that it is like maybe put up on like an island where no car would get to. Yeah, I tend to make sure that it doesn't impact
Okay.
some other one that's somebody else that's parking in the lot.
Ivan, do you put away your shopping cart?
Always. I'm the type of person that even picks up trash from the floor, man. Like
Yeah,
I
I
don't
do that.
like
Yeah,
I don't like litter bugs or people that don't put their cart back, especially at Costco. Costco is like
yeah.
it's always a mission to get in and out of that parking lot, and like it really grinds my gears when people just leave their carts everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I got some would you rather's real quick. So we'll go through these real quick. You cannot walk, crawl, or anything like that. You can only hop, or you have to sprint. Which one would you rather choose?
Sprint.
You just try to go to the get some water or something like that. You get to sprint over. But I think I would do sprinting too, because I think hopping would be really annoying to deal with. Yeah, if stairs, you gotta sprint up the stairs, If you gotta hop it up too. Let's see. Would you rather have super slow internet, like you're basically buffering a YouTube video, or your phone battery is always low, no matter how much you charge?
Phone battery.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think I could deal without the phone. I can't deal with the PC doing that. That would be
like even at low battery and a phone, and fast internet, you could still find something out really quick. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Would you rather never have to sleep again or never have to use the bathroom again?
Oh wow. Never have to.
I saw this on the Reddit forums and I was like, oh wait, that's a good question.
I mean, if you never have to use the bathroom, you continuously eat whatever.
Yeah,
it
just like disappears. It's just like you don't have to basically use the restroom.
I mean, I love sleeping, so yeah, if I don't have to use the bathroom, then yeah.
That's the issue, because people say, yeah, sleep saves a lot of time, but the issue is if you never have to sleep again, that's a lot of time
What
to do
if?
stuff.
Yeah.
You're gonna be
All right, so
bored.
I'll make it even harder though. What if by never having to use the bathroom again, you will always have that sensation that you have to go?
Oh, that's awful.
That is awful.
And then I guess
Uh,
if you never have to sleep, you'll always be sleep. You'll
yeah,
always
but
do
always
that.
tired.
You
But
always do
always
that
tired.
tired thing, but you never
Yeah,
have
yeah.
to. Oh,
Yeah.
the
I hate-
side effects. I
yeah.
hate the side effects.
Uh,
Oh,
I personally, I think I would rather just feel that pee sensation, man, because
ugh.
I don't think I can feel like I'm about to just
I can't
take
operate like
over.
that. Like
I think I could deal with
I
being
just need to pass
tired,
out.
right?
Yeah.
I think I'd rather be
No.
tired than feel like you always have to pee or poop, because that would be awful. Yeah, people is that yeah, like what Kiva said in the chat is like I already have chronic fatigue. This ain't nothing. Yeah, it's like on yeah. Laura says you're on edge during every meeting. Yeah, that sounds awful.
Yeah, that would really suck, actually.
God, I hate the little side effects that you added on. It made it way worse. I was like, oh, I don't even know if I want this anymore. I just rather be normal at this point.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, would you rather get a toenail ripped off or pass a kidney stone?
Honestly, I don't know the sensation for either of these. I mean, I just know that both hurts like hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
The kidney stone in particular is supposed to be more painful than childbirth, apparently.
Right. That's what. Yeah, but you don't know until, because everyone's perception of pain is different as well, right?
Everyone's pain is for if you're one of those people that can just like, get hit and you're like a boxer, you're like, oh, I could take it.
Cassid 7 in the chat, they say they've had
Take the
both.
toenail.
Trust me, take the toenail. In fact, take all 10. There you
Oh
go.
my God, take
Oh,
10
wow.
toenails
There's the
versus one
answer.
kidney stone? That's
Wow.
how bad it was? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'll take your word for it, because I think what toenail is like immediately, and then after a while your body gets used to it.
Hmm.
Maybe you like wrap it up or something. So yeah, toenail makes sense.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yes, 100%. I dropped to my knees in pain with that kidney stone. Oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. And then would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
100 duck-sized horses. Wait, duck-sized horse. Holy crap. No, it's 100 duck-sized horses.
What's your plan then? You have no
I don't
weapons.
know.
It's just
Yes, but-
you.
Yeah, how do you do that?
Well, I was thinking about the like the size of the mouth, right? A horse-sized duck has a big ass mouth, right?
Yeah.
How do you fend that off?
That's
right?
true. And they're vicious
then-
too. The ducks are vicious.
Right. Because that beak is going to be maybe the size of your torso, versus say 100 duck-sized horses,
Your knee.
right? And then their mouth are like this tiny, right? So, yeah.
All right. I think that's all the rapid fire community questions, our own interview questions. I think I'll go into announcements. Ivan, do we have anything before we go into announcements?
I just want to thank Kevin for joining us on the second episode of the NZXT Case-A-Thon. I also want to thank everyone who tuned in live, except for DJ Illogic. They were a little distracting there in the chat. They kept typing. Just kidding, Laurent. Love you, man. I also wanted to thank all the people from the NZXT Club who tuned in to earn those Poochoo points.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks everybody for tuning in.
Yeah. All right. Let me get some announcements. I know people were here for the for the code, a special code that gives 100 or 500 extra entries. So I'll go ahead and do the announcements and I give you that code. So first, like we talked about for our Case-A-Thon, we have some cases on sale. You guys can take a look at nzxt.co/Amazon to check out all these cases. And we also have other things on sale as well. So take a look on our Amazon page. You get all the details of our Case-A-Thon on our blog. So nzxt.co/blog. If you guys want to take a look at every single thing, any single update we're doing, any future events like we have for next week. We have Jules coming on next week. So keep a look on the blog and we'll keep that updated as possible. Like Ivan said, you can see in the chat right there from Harbor Quest, people are getting Poochie points. If you guys want to join our club, you guys can get Poochie points for doing some quests, just by joining in on the Twitch stream, liking certain things on our social platforms, and you can use those Poochie points to get prizes. I actually just shipped out a bunch of prizes from like cases and peripherals and Poochie plushes, and I've been sending out Steam gift cards. We're giving out so much stuff. It's free stuff for just participating. So join the club, nzxt.co/club or !club in the chat. Make sure to follow at NZXT on social media platforms. And also, if you guys have any questions or any sort of concerns, or maybe even have any opinions about our Case-A-Thon, you can email podcast@nzxt.com. Yes, Zelda is chilling right here. She's starting to get a little annoyed when I do my announcements. I think that's it. I haven't do anything before I give out the code to all the people here.
No, I just want to thank Kevin again. It was a pleasure.
Yep, it's a pleasure.
Righty. So we are doing a giveaway for 3 winners. We'll get some of the be patient, AG. I'm getting to that. I'm getting to it. So we're giving away 3 cases. We'll pull out the winner later today. We'll email you. Check the emails so you can see who wins. And you guys can win a case of any of your choice or color, depending on what we have in stock too. But the code for that is, I'm gonna make you guys wait even longer now, because you know what? It's like when a teacher does it. I'm gonna make you wait 5 seconds. Okay, I'm impatient too. All right, the code is just in case. Just in case. That is the code for 500 extra entries. That was our way of saying thank you guys for joining us live. Thank you, Kevin, for joining us and giving so many insights. I saw some people in the comments saying like this is actually really cool to learn. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Kevin, for the thing. And thank you all for joining us live and tuning in on our NZXT Twitch at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Times on Fridays. And don't forget to listen to the previous episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Got any question for us, send an email to podcast@nzxt.com or tag @nzxt on social media platforms. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Zelda. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. See you next time and have a safe weekend. Bye, everyone.
Bye.